Backcountry Colorado, hiking, backpacking.
I did a lot of marathons and was convinced to do some ultras.
Climbing, and I do filming and photography.
I just like the ultras because I love the community. I just think that everybody is so nice, whether they're the first place finishers or, you know, us that kind of mosey along.
All right, everybody, welcome to another Dispatch Radio Hour. We are here in the Airstream at Studio Boulder with a whole bunch of interesting people. One of them is Kelly. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Russ.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Who's sitting next to you?
Josh Stevens.
We got Josh Stevens. He's a show favorite. Almost needs no introduction. And we've got we actually have a pile of men in the trailer of what we have going on tonight, if we look around here. Next to Kelly, we've got
Rob Harsh.
And next to Rob, on the mic sharing duty,
Brendan Leonard.
And at the end,
Matt Samet.
Matt, you are the editor of Climbing Magazine. We're excited to have you on the show. You've written a book. Brendan Leonard, creator of semirad.com. You've written a book. Rob Harsh, oh my gosh, give us the trifecta. Have you written a book?
I'm writing a book.
You are in the process of writing a book. We're here to do a couple of things. One, we want to let people know something exciting, right, Kelly?
Yes. What is that, Russ?
We got a new speaker series that's launching in May 17th. Everybody get your iPhones out right now. Mark your calendar, May 17th.
Rare Air is coming to Boulder, in the Studio Boulder. Thank you, Studio Boulder, for hosting us tonight and always for the podcast and for Rare Air.
The Rare Air Talks, you guys, while you're getting your iPhones out, go ahead and go to the website, rareairtalks.com. Sign up to be notified as we announce new speakers and ticket sales. Night one, May 17th, Luis Benitez, the right-hand man to the governor, Hickenlooper on outdoor industry, and Jamie Logan, a name that if you're interested in the climbing community, if you're part of the climbing community, it's a name you should know. And sorry, guys, I'm a little extra sweaty and smelly tonight. I was actually climbing with Jamie earlier today. So in putting this Rare Air Talk series together, in the last 2 weeks, I've climbed with a one-handed woman and a transgender 71-year-old woman. So I'm having an exciting month.
And now we are in the trailer with some awesome people. Yesterday, Russ and I were together discussing Rare Talks, and then we started discussing tonight and what these guys had in common that are here tonight. And we found that they all are writing books, like Rob, or wrote books. And also, after stalking all of you yesterday, I was really surprised to find that you all share your story in such rawness, which I appreciate so much. I think that's really hard to do as a guy. And it was awesome. I cried listening to one of Rob's recent podcasts multiple times. And then Brendan, I watched the How to Run 100 Miles. And your buddy Jason, oh my God, give me a break. He's amazing. You're amazing too, but what a great film that you created. I loved it. It was so inspiring. You guys are so inspiring. And Matt, just to tell your story like you did about becoming addicted to pills. It's one of the biggest epidemics going on right now. And one of the reasons we invited Josh here, because he told his story for the first time on our podcast probably like almost
over a year ago now. Yeah.
And had a similar situation. So it's really great to have you here. And we're going to start off with Rob reading. Is that okay, Rob? Reading about a little bit about his book, a section from his book. Could you tell us first about your book?
Is this the book in process of writing?
This is the book in process of writing.
Oh, we're getting the fresh stuff, guys. Dispatch Radio Nation.
Edited. It's called The Adventure Mindset, Stepping Beyond the Trail and Pioneering Your Own Path in Life. So this is all about mindset. I could have wrote a book about surviving cancer, but everybody's dealing with challenge and struggle. So I wanted to write something that spoke to everybody. So Here it goes. You must understand that just because something seems complicated doesn't mean it requires a complicated solution. In the end, you are the one that makes the experience easy or difficult through your perception of it. It is not necessarily the experience itself that is difficult. Think about this for a moment. Do the answers to life's challenges exist in acquiring some knowledge, skill, or thing you do not yet have, as we have been led to believe? Or can the answers be found simply by adjusting the filter in which you are looking through life? Ultimately, the answers cannot be found in some book or from some guru. All the answers exist within you already and are just waiting for you to discover them. While we all certainly need knowledge and people that can guide us along the path, at a certain point, too much knowledge and information can literally become the engine which fuels a mindset of fear. This is where the modern world is currently holding society hostage, enslaving us to a mindset that's only purpose is to keep us motivated by our subconscious fears.
Wow. So that last part there, like social media, like there's so much coming at us. Is that part of it?
There's an information war happening,
Yeah.
and there is this culture or this mindset of fear. It's like a virus that I became aware of it in my cancer journey because, working with doctors, I realized that cancer was a story in our minds. When I heard the diagnosis, the prognosis that I had cancer, I immediately went to this idea that I was going to die. And everybody I talk to that has cancer, no matter what stage cancer they have, stage 1 cancer to stage 4 cancer, when they hear that diagnosis, they think they're going to die. Where does that come from? It's a collective kind of concept. And there is this approach that the power bases in this world are using fear-based tactics to influence our mindset. So, our mindsets are the most valuable thing that we possess. What I learned in my cancer journey was that I developed a mindset over my entire life, dreaming big, going on tough challenges, and going on big adventures around the world. And through that mindset, I developed this idea of going beyond the trail and pioneering my own path. So when I was sitting there, I didn't know what to do when I got diagnosed with cancer. I was given 2 months to live, and I was being hit by the information I was being hit by was mind-boggling. And the fear that I felt, like I never felt fear like that in my life, and I've jumped out of planes and was hanging off of cliffs, all the stuff that we know and love.
A normal day in Boulder.
Yeah, we know and love as adventurers. And this was raw fear. This was something deeper. And I went into those depths, and something happened in those depths, and a doorway appeared. And it was this doorway to the unknown, and it was a mindset. And when I chose to step through that doorway, it was like a switch flipped, and I was able to see the situation from a completely different perspective. And I started to look at cancer. I started to become really curious about my cancer. Just as I was curious about all these adventures that I went on in my life and all these challenges that, I voluntarily went to experience, I kind of applied that mindset, which I had cultivated my entire life, to my cancer journey. And something miraculous happened when I did that. It was like it was like a flood of possibility opened up. It wasn't now I only had the option of chemo and radiation and what doctors were telling me. I had all the options that were available to me in the entire universe. And you know,
What option did you go with? Now you did. Did you do chemo at all?
I didn't do chemo.
Yeah. So that was a big decision for you.
Yeah, it was a huge decision.
And why did you decide to go that route?
I really wanted to just take a natural route because I worked in the pharmaceutical industry. I developed cancer drugs. I worked for Amgen for many years, and you know, I knew all the stats. I read all the research, and I had gone from being a scientist to being a person of more, I would say, faith and belief. And that was the mindset that I had learned as an adventurer, is that I didn't necessarily have the knowledge and the skills to do all the things that I did, but I did have this belief in myself. And that's what I chose to do, is I chose to not necessarily listen to the doctors, not necessarily listen to what the world was telling me, but to listen to my own mind, to listen to my own heart, and to follow what it was telling me.
And all of us in the trailer and the Airstream here today are, you know, kind of bound by a love for the outdoors. What part of the outdoors kind of played into you? I know that's a big part of your life. It seems like it was a big part of your life pre-cancer, and then became maybe even more of a part of your life post-cancer, if that is even the term. Talk to us just about how the outdoors plays into this.
Well, you know, I was a runner and I was an adventure racer, and there was always a moment in an adventure race where you thought you couldn't go any further. You know, the pain was too great, or you know, you just didn't think you could go on. Your feet hurt, your muscles hurt, you were tired, you didn't want to do this anymore. But yet, you kept putting one foot in front of the other, and you kept doing it over and over and over again until you got to that finish line. And the feeling that you had when you reached that finish line was like no other, you know. So I applied that mindset to cancer, and, you know, I changed, you know, instead of looking at, you know, this savage mountain, you know, this ominous mountain, you know, where only a few dare to go, you know, I looked at it as this wondrous mountain that was calling my name and asking to be climbed. And so every day I woke up and I applied a practice of visualization. I applied the practice of mindfulness, and I allowed that to guide me. And I connected with this greater intelligence that exists within our body, this intelligence that we've been cut off from. When you are an adventurer and you go out into the wilderness, it's just you in the wilderness. You have this connection with the wilderness. You know, this is the connection that we've lost in many facets of our life. And so I was forced to go back there because there was no way out for me. And eventually it guided me back to life.
Have you done any adventure racing after you healed from cancer?
I'm yet to do an adventure race. I'm just back running again. In the middle of my stage 4 cancer, this miraculous thing happened. I was out walking in the woods and I had a vision of me walking up a stone path above Machu Picchu, guiding a group of people. And you know, I own an adventure travel business, and I had sold a trip that was going to happen 4 months after I had this vision. And in that moment, I decided that that's what I was going to do. And I started training, putting one foot in front of the other. And 4 months later, I found myself in Peru with stage 4 lung cancer, guiding a group of 25 Kiwis to Machu Picchu.
Well, that's a story they'll go home and tell their friends about.
Yeah.
Well, the theme for tonight is resilience. The theme for, I should mention, the Rare Air Talks in June will be resilience, when folks can hear Rob and Brendan here at the Studio Boulder on stage. Brendan, people mostly, I would say, you tell me. I think most people know you through Semi-Rad. They probably think Brendan Leonard, funny guy, right? Is that the majority?
Hopefully handsome and charming.
Handsome. Oh, handsome. I hadn't thought of handsome. Okay.
Um,
But you also write from the heart, is my point. Is people may have seen the charts that I've actually had the pleasure of seeing you doodle or draw on your iPad in East Denver. But you wrote a powerful memoir called 60 Meters to Anywhere, and you're going to read a little bit from that.
Yeah. It's funny, Matt actually edited a little chunk of this book when it was there was a part of it that appeared in Alpinist, and Matt actually edited some of it. So
yeah, I was psyched to see it early on and psyched to see it in print too.
yeah, I didn't ask anybody for permission. I hope it was okay with Katie. But yeah, it's like the whole thing is not very funny, which is definitely a bummer for people, I think. But no, it's I've been trying to get the book published for like 13 years, and I think getting my career going helped it actually get published eventually. So they actually put creator of semirad.com on the cover. So I don't know if they were like, this will be an easy sell. He has like sort of a market. He can just do all the work himself, but whatever. So I do have this, there's a little passage in here. So the book is about my battle with addiction, and then discovering rock climbing in the mountains. And some of the bad reviews on Amazon, people complain that there's not enough climbing in it, and it doesn't start until like page 100. So, I mean, sorry, it's tough shit. But this is...
They want more gnar, man.
Yeah,
More gnar earlier.
People always, and Matt would probably agree with this, people bring their own expectations to your book, and they're like, well, it wasn't this, and it wasn't that. And you're like, well... Nobody said it was going to be, I don't know where you're getting that idea, but yeah. So I guess to set this up, this is one of the sections I always read at book readings. And so I had moved to Montana from Iowa, didn't know anything about anything, started hiking a little bit. And then I started working in an REI store, and these guys at work had, said I should go climbing with them. And I was like, no, I'm good. Thanks. And this is Christmas back in Iowa. Where I get a gift that is going to mean a lot to me. So I hope it's not that long, but I'll go fast. Back in Iowa for the holidays, I pulled a microwave-sized box out from under the Christmas tree. To Brendan from Chad. Inside was a climbing rope, 60 meters long, blue, black, and green weave. Blue water enduro, designed to stretch and absorb the fall of a climber. It wasn't neatly coiled or shrink-wrapped like the ones we sold at REI. It was just piled into the box. Standard fare for Christmas gifts between brothers. We care, but let's not get too mushy about it. What the hell am I going to do with this, I thought. Might as well be a sweater. It's a good rope, Chad said. He had bought it a year ago before deciding he wasn't going to be a rock climber after all, at least not outside a climbing gym. It had never been used. I didn't think I needed it either. I was starting to fall in love with the exhilaration of the high-altitude environment, the wind blowing across rocky ridges, the exposure to the elements, and the grit it took to keep pushing forward and up despite exhaustion. Yet I felt content to stay on terrain that my hiking boots could stick to. To me, the rope seemed like a regift, like, hey, I was cleaning out my garage and I found this rope. I'm not using it, so here's your Christmas present. I had never climbed with a rope before, and I didn't think I was interested in trying it anytime soon. I'm from Iowa. We're sensible people. We don't go looking for new, crazy things in our late 20s. We settle down into good jobs and start getting the pieces in place to raise a family. Reliable car, decent house, 401k. We don't become adrenaline junkies or whatever the hell you call people who go rock climbing. Still, I wasn't going to not take the rope back to Phoenix with me. It was, after all, a $200 rope. I mumbled thanks, like you do, and we moved on, watching my mom open her gift from my dad, a pair of jeans with $100 in the pocket. When you talk about things that change your life, you think about having kids, finding Jesus, getting a job opportunity that skyrocketed your career, stuff like that. You don't think about some crap your brother threw in a box 3 days before Christmas. But I suppose I should have known by then, not to expect the predictable. I could have stayed in Cedar Falls, Iowa after college, drinking 4 or 5 nights a week at Toad's and Burke's, watching my belly get bigger. I could have made excuses about my 2 DUI convictions, about how the cops had it out for me, or how I was unlucky. I could have hit on college girls until my mid-30s, maybe convinced one of them to marry me. Maybe that would have been okay. But I couldn't help think about this one saying that people like. Part of it is attributed to Henry David Thoreau, but the second half is likely a paraphrasing of something Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote. It goes, "Most men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them." I heard that and I wondered if I was one of those people who was headed to the grave with the song still in them. I think I was on my way there at 23. There was passion inside, but I didn't know where to direct it, so I just poured whiskey on it. Now I was bouncing off the walls, pacing around a tiny room. Still, I thought I was pretty happy. I was about to turn 26, I lived with Amy, and I could pay up my rent, if not my student loan payments, with my first newspaper job. I hadn't had a drink in almost 3 years. I felt strong, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't solid or confident. Sobriety was like an itchy sweater I'd been forced to wear to some formal event. I was treading water in life, rudderless, coasting. I didn't know what I was or what I was about. I knew only 2 things. I couldn't drink anymore, and I wanted to write. And then I opened that box. That rope would change my life.
Well, I was a little disappointed to learn that you're not climbing regularly anymore, Brendan.
Yeah, I apologize.
So we need
Sorry to let you down.
We need to fix that. How long ago was that now?
That Christmas gift?
Yeah.
2004.
Yeah,
2003,
so
2004.
14 years ago.
Yeah.
And
I mean, like, my brother has not nailed a Christmas gift like that before or since then. So, like, but if you get one good one out of like 38 Christmas
Pretty
gifts, I
good.
feel like, yeah, it's pretty good.
I was going to say, note to listeners, I think anybody who listens to our podcast, a brand new climber is a perfectly great re-gift. No problem. No problem in my book. So what was it? Tell us about climbing, and part of what we like to talk about is, outdoors not just about like being rad, and there is a component of it that's serious, that can be therapeutic, and it sounds like climbing for you was that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I knew what, like when you do something a lot, like drinking and partying, you just become sort of like, this is my identity. I want to be the fun guy, and when you have to stop that all of a sudden, you don't really know what you are. You just know what you can't do. So, it felt like when I introduced myself to people, it was like, hi, I don't drink. And it's a negative, you're like, I don't know what I actually do, but it's like if they said, oh, hey, I'm Bob, I don't fly fish, so I was looking for something, and like, you never introduce yourself like that at a party. But that was like the one thing that took up most of my waking, brain power for so long, because it takes a lot to quit something like that. So
That's the only way I introduce myself.
that you don't fly fish. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I don't do crack either, yeah. So when climbing came along, it was like this thing that, it was the only thing that, to me, allowed me to relax, where I would be completely focused on one thing, which is what you need to be doing most of the time you're climbing, because if not, everybody knows you could fall and, really mess yourself up or die. So you get in these situations where everything else falls away and you're just literally focusing on that one thing, even if it's for, and like a lot of the climbing you do, you spend hours on the approach and you're belaying a lot of the time, and you're only actually leading for a few minutes of a Saturday or whatever. But that was enough for me, and it became this identity for me and gave me confidence again, and like, okay, this is what I can do.
There is something about climbing that it seems to me it is unique to climbing, that when you're climbing and leading and realizing that like a fall wouldn't be fun, like you might not die, but it might not be great, like it's gonna hurt. Yeah. You get completely focused on it, and it just clouds everything out that's going on in your life.
Yeah, you're not.
And
like,
that was.
Did I pay the cable bill?
Yeah.
It's like.
But that was it for you while you were, you'd gone through this kind of dark period. You wanted to clean up, get sober, and that's the therapy that it provided to you.
Yeah, and just gave you like this sort of identity too. I didn't really like my job at the time. I was working in a newspaper that nobody read, and like it gave me this thing.
That's just
on
any
weekend.
Newspaper now.
Well, yeah, but this is 10 years ago. Like, and I mean,
I say mournfully as an ex-newspaper.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But yeah, so I didn't want to, like when I introduced myself to people, I didn't want to talk about what I did for a living. I wanted to like, oh, I'm a rock climber. Do you want to talk about that? That's really what I'm excited about. So it was this thing I could look forward to on the weekends, which I think it is for a lot of people who climb. Maybe you don't love your day job, or you don't consider that as big a part of your identity as this thing that you're totally obsessed with. And it kind of took over my life for 6 or 7 years,
And then it seems like maybe you moved on to ultra running recently.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it more and more. And it was in 2013, I had a kid fall and deck next to me on Castleton Tower, and go into a seizure right, literally right next to me. And we spent 6 hours helping get him off of there. And I don't think I realized at the time how much it affected me. But like when you see a body hit, like what happens when you just hit 100% after falling 25 feet, he landed directly on his face. I think it really kind of woke me up to being like, oh, that's what can actually happen. Because I had pulled through moves above bad protection or crappy rock and thought, oh yeah, this is totally worth it. And then you're just looking at this guy like, this isn't worth it, And I climbed for another year after that, and I was doing a big wall in Zion with a friend, and I was just looking up at this, this wall that just seemed to be hanging over me, going, I am totally filled with dread right now, and I have to lead the last 2 pitches, and like there's a bolt missing, and it's all hook move, and it was just like, oh God, and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm having fun anymore. So I took a break.
Running sounds fun.
Yeah, it was like I describe it as all the pain and suffering of mountaineering without the risk of death, because like people aren't like, you're gonna be miserable, and it's gonna be like the worst day of your life, but you're probably not gonna die,
Probably
and
not.
like.
But so you did a little, I say a little movie, it was a short, it was 20 something minutes.
Yeah.
How to Run 100 Miles. Run Rabbit Run. That's a race a lot of our listeners know out in Steamboat.
Yeah.
You finished it.
Yeah. I was jokingly calling it the Run Rabbit Walk by the time.
Right. I know, right? That's what I tell people that don't know about this ultra running thing. It's a misnomer, Josh Stevens. For Josh Stevens, it's ultra running because he is actually running the whole time.
Yeah, you're like the top 10%, right?
Like
yeah.
80% of the people, it's run walking, right?
There's some power hiking involved.
Power hiking.
Do you power hike or do you run the whole time?
It depends. I'm not.
Admit it.
Yeah, I'm not a particularly strong climber. I'm a better turnover on flat downhill stuff. But yeah, there's some power hiking involved. And
We did some strong power hiking for the Traverse.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the Skyline Traverse here in Boulder.
No joke.
Yeah.
Have you done Run Rabbit Run?
No, I haven't. That's one I haven't been on yet.
All right. Well, you recommend it? That's the one that pays the bills. It's like you can win over 10 grand if you get in first.
You can.
You can. Yeah. It's a big one. Yeah. But you do have a belt buckle.
Yeah.
There's another version of the run walk. It's called the run puke, and I did that across Death Valley.
The run puke. Yeah.
On my attempt to finish the Badwater.
That's a whole nother. Yeah. The run puke.
That's one where you could die.
Yes. I think Dean Karnazes, the first year he won it, they said, like, I think his quote was, I survived the fastest. Like that was how he finished. Yeah.
Was there any point when you were running that 100 where you thought maybe climbing was better?
I mean,
You didn't even think
boy.
about it.
The whole time.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was
The whole time.
I thought a lot of things might be better, like just like laying down, having a good cry.
What mile? At what mile? Like what mile was the worst of the 100?
People say it's like the night, but I had no problem during the night. And like when the sun came up, I was just like, fuck.
Sunrise the
Like,
next day
yeah.
when you realize I've been like in motion this whole freaking time.
We're not actually going that fast, and this may actually go on another like 9 hours. And you're like, holy shit.
That's the other thing about ultra running is like if you're pacing somebody or you're like they could be off like 4 hours and that's normal.
I love that vignette, and I would share with you that I think some of the most memorable moments in competitive ultra running are never the glorious finish line crossing photos or just tearing down Scree and Taliesin looking like Killian.
A golden god.
I think I remember more frequently the times where I had the energy to take one step off the trail to pee and dropping to my knees like Willem Dafoe in the scene of Platoon. Yes. When they're leaving
To
him,
pee.
and you have your hands up in the air and you're like, please God, make it stop. Those are my favorite moments personally, but I mean some people like the finish line. I mean it's personal.
Matt, have you got any of this ultra running? You're a climbing guy.
Yeah, I it's been a long time since I've ran, but I can appreciate the effort
Yeah, you appreciate the effort from afar.
from afar. Yeah,
He's like, I'm way too smart for that.
I'm kind of bow-legged too, so the physics are kind of not ideal.
Well, Matt, before we jump into your reading, give us a quick little bio. So you're the editor of Climbing Magazine. How long have you done that?
This time?
Yeah, this time. Yeah, exactly. You've had multiple stints.
Yeah, this is my second time working there, or sorry, my third time working there, second time being editor. I've been there a year this time.
A year this time. Yeah. And you've been to some other magazines. You've been in journalism for
A while,
Yeah.
20 something years or something, freelance, working for different titles, kind of always in the climbing titles and
your
things
book
like that.
has probably the best title of an author that I know personally. Can you tell us what the title of your book is?
Oh, I'm glad you like it. It's called Death Grip. I actually didn't think up the title, the publisher did, but they liked it. Yeah.
Finish it out for us, though. Death Grip.
Oh, Death Grip, A Climber's Escape from Benzo Madness.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's got a Hunter S. Thompson feel to it. A little bit. And in the crowd today, Chris Van Leuven with another outdoors journalist. He writes for you, right? Is he on deadline right now? Is he late on any projects?
Yeah, no, Chris hit it out of the
He's
park.
good.
We just finished an anthology together.
Out of the park, he says.
Yeah. Chris is a very valuable contributor to Climbing Magazine, climbing.com. We love having him.
And you've got a 50th anniversary book coming out. Are we
Yeah.
able to say that?
Yeah,
Breaking
yeah.
news here?
It's going to be called Vantage Point. That's what Chris was working on. Climbing Magazine started in 1970, so this anthology, we broke up the kind of the best first person, kind of iconic, spirit of the age essays, first person essays from each decade. So there'll be 5 chapters with a collection of essays in each. And then each chapter also has a new introductory essay by someone who was a major climber in that period.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be a good one. Let's hear a little bit from Death Grip.
Okay. Oh, it's cool. I got it. You can do double. This is from the prologue. Suffocation, a 3x4 foot oil on wood painting, hangs in our home in Gun Barrel, Colorado, a suburb of the climbers' mecca of Boulder. I've lived in Boulder minus a few stints in Italy and on Colorado's west slope since 1991. Red, black, blue, mustard, livid, and impossible to miss, the painting anchors a windowless wall. Were a window there, it would open south toward the steeply pitched Boulder Mountains. Cloaked in ponderosa and beetling with the planed pyramidal sandstone of Flatirons formations, it's here that I've climbed 23 of my 27 years on rock. That's totally out of date. I guess it's 32 years on rock at this point. The Flatirons are a second home, a place where I've faced down brute cold fear, but also where I've had great moments of peace, repair from the black waves of depression, anxiety, and addiction that nearly killed me. The painting by the talented climbing artist Jeremy Collins was a parting gift in 2005 from the staff at Rock and Ice, a climbing magazine. I'd been editor there for a year until I had to resign, tumbled through the barrel by a mounting wave of bizarre, inexplicable panic attacks that made it impossible to focus or sit at my desk. They were the result, I would come to realize far too late, of addiction to and then withdrawal from the minor tranquilizer Klonopin, complicated by a tangled on and off love affair with marijuana, wine, and the narcotic painkiller Vicodin. That's a lot of drugs, isn't it? Klonopin is a high-potency, fast-acting benzodiazepine, a family of drugs most commonly is prescribed for anxiety, insomnia, and seizure disorders that also includes the notorious Valium, which was from 1968 until 1981 the West's most prescribed medicine. Jer created the original artwork in 2003 to accompany a column I'd written on life as a climber with a panic disorder, recurrent panic attacks, and how 9 others similarly afflicted balanced vertical pursuits with the omnipresent specter of anxiety, and how I sometimes, well by that point daily, a fact omitted in the article, took benzos, unaware that the pills were perpetuating the problem.
And you write in the book, anxiety and fear are different, and there's like a connect. Talk to me a little bit about anxiety and fear and climbing, because most people think of climbers as just they've got a death wish and they can handle fear really well, but that ability to handle fear is different than handling anxiety. Is that right? Yeah,
I mean, fear is a logical response to a threat. Anxiety is fretting over the threat. Say you're going to climb the Diamond. If you have butterflies in your belly the whole time you're walking up there, but you haven't even seen the wall yet, that's anxiety. If you get up on the wall and you're 6 pitches up and a thunderstorm comes in and you got to get out of there, that would be fear. It'd be a justifiable response to a mortal peril, basically. Anxiety is just sort of the stewing over what's going to go wrong, we all suffer from anxiety. I don't know if I've ever met a human being who doesn't have anxiety to some degree.
And so and benzo, I'm personally interested in benzo because our son has seizures and is taking similar medication that you described. This is common stuff.
Sure. It's
And
ubiquitous.
people don't realize how addicting it can be. And we've got, Josh Stevens here with the Heron Project, who's got his own personal connection. This is an issue we've gotten into on Dispatch Radio. Talk to us a little bit about coming out. I mean, you were addicted to this stuff for a long time. So how did you crawl out of that?
Well, I was on it for a long time. I mean, like 13 years. And by the time I got off, I was very habituated to it. I mean, it was a total nightmare to get off, primarily because I went to doctors thinking they would help me, and they didn't. They just put me on more junk, stuff that was even more toxic and more nervous system disabling. So, I mean, I haven't taken a psych med since 2006 or something like that, but my nervous system is still affected. I mean, I think that's the thing that's the story that really needs to be told. These things might work for a while. Maybe they'll work your whole life. But if you decide to go off, you may have long-term residual damage. And I think that's the main message that I was hoping to convey with this book, and that people don't need to despair when they're in that state too, because it's an extreme, almost sort of psycho-spiritual crisis when you're in florid psychiatric medicine withdrawal, that a lot of people lose hope and kill themselves. So I was hoping also to document, this happened to me, this was a very real thing. If you're on these meds, it could happen to you too. So that was the goal.
What do you experience with your nervous system now?
For me, it's just sort of like a car that's in first gear and someone's got their foot on the gas and it needs to be up in like fourth or fifth gear. That's sort of what it feels like. Like I have a very strong electrical current kind of coursing through my nervous system, my spine into my belly. And on bad days, I'll wake up and it's on me. And I'm like, today's going to be a bad day. On good days, it's not there. But your central nervous system is the engine of your body, really. So it affects your digestion. It affects your cognition, your perception, everything. So I think, having a nervous system in hyperdrive, I don't know. It's a strange feeling.
Is there was the outdoors a part of getting out of the depths? Is there? Did you find kind of therapy in climbing, or how did that play into your story?
Yeah, I think climbing has been a huge thing that's at least let me heal somewhat physically by kind of rebuilding physical strength. I mean, kind of like Rob was talking about, like you go through a physical ordeal, you need to come back to something slowly. You might not be who you were, boom, like that, but the things that made you who you were before you have trauma or an ordeal are still there, and you come back to them slowly, and they bring you back to yourself. So I think climbing has definitely been useful in that sense. I mean, just this afternoon, I went into work super early, and we went climbing in Dream Canyon, just west of here, and there were no cars, and there was just wind and clouds and some birds, and it felt really good. Even though like my nervous system's all fucked up today, and I woke up and I was like, today sucks. It's fucking horrible. Like I went climbing, I was like, oh, okay.
I was going to add something. First, thanks to you and Kelly for having me on here. This was the first program I ever went on to discuss my addiction. It was the first time I had ever talked publicly about it. I served for 24 years in the Army. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel. Served in the Rangers. I was blown up 4 times in Iraq and had 2 cervical spinal surgeries, the first at Walter Reed Army Medical Center and the second at Womack Army Medical Center at Fort Bragg. I didn't become addicted until I was 37. It was the first time I'd ever been exposed to pharmaceuticals of that level. So I want to applaud you because what you're saying resonates deeply with me. Benzodiazepines, opiates from fentanyl, Dilaudid, Percocet, Oxycontin. I was on all of it. I went from being a pretty stand-up, straight-edge guy to being a complete mess. And I know what it's like to wake up in the morning and feel off and understand how scary it is, regardless of how many scary things that we do. to talk about it, to admit that kind of weakness, and I want to applaud you for talking about it, because it's an epidemic, as you know. Benzos are right along up there with opiates right now, and there's a lot of us who didn't know how to articulate that or communicate it or to ask for family support. So thank you so much for doing that, because it's a deep hole to get out of.
Yeah, it is. No, thank you for sharing your story. I mean, as you know, it's really problematic because these things are sanctioned and legitimized by Western medicine. And Western medicine doesn't want you to stop taking what they're selling. So when you go to them for help and they helped you get into this pickle, suddenly you're like, oh, I'm totally on my own. So yeah.
And the similarities between Brendan and your story, Matt, are obvious, but then I'm also hearing Rob some similarities. You talked about fear earlier, which definitely some similarities there, and then the pharmaceutical. You were educated enough to know to be able to at least make the right decision for yourself, whereas a lot of us are just. We're just dependent on what our doctor tells us to do.
Yeah, but I also had my time with pharmaceuticals in my life. I went through a huge period of my life where I suffered from extreme depression. And, 4 years ago, a girlfriend of mine died from pancreatic cancer. So cancer created a trauma in my life. Trauma is trauma. And it brings us back into this. It's a fear-based memory that triggers in our mind, but it creates this anxiety. And I've been working with vets for over 10 years. I started working with vets with a famous climber that you guys all know, Eric Weinmeier. And he's been an incredible pioneer and guide in my life. And I was, I've been talking to these vets, and I never realized until I went through my own deep trauma what these guys were really experiencing, because it's just psychologically so devastating, and you just want it to stop, and you will do anything to make it stop, and taking the drugs to make it stop is not the answer.
Or pouring the whiskey on it.
Yeah. So I've actually, in my coming back from cancer, I've had PTSD. And I've been talking to the vets that I know who are going to Walter Reed and getting prescribed these medicines. And I'm saying, hey, man, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. And I think... when you talk about that moment in Dream Canyon this morning, I mean, I have that moment when I'm just hiking up my little road up to the top of my little mountain every day. And some days I get out of bed and I'm like, okay, I need this. And I'm out there for 2, 3, 4 hours. And I'm just enjoying the sunlight. I'm enjoying the wildlife. I'm enjoying the trees. And it doesn't even matter what pace I'm going at. I just need it.
Well, we've got some special guests here in the audience that have come out. If folks want to open it up, Jeremy Hendricks, longtime friend of the show. Thanks for coming out. Multi-talented. Also, your hookup for La Sportiva discounts, y'all. If you come out to the Studio Boulder, right across the parking lot is the La Sportiva store. Chris Van Leuven, gonna bring an audience mic over. When you're a professional journalist and you walk into the Airstream, you are expected to perform. Oh.
Hi.
Hi, Chris. Well, first tell us what you're working on, Chris, because you're always working on something.
I'm working on a book right now for Mountaineers Books. It's due in November. I just wrapped up a book with Matt.
That's how journalists talk. They speak in terms of deadlines. It's like, hey, man, how's it going? I got a deadline in November. Yeah, it's coming up. It's
on 2 climbers who went to the Himalaya, 1 returned, and it's their story.
2 climbers go to the Himalaya, 1 returns. It's their story. That's a good trailer. I like it.
Yeah, there's more to it, I guess. But I just kind of sit by myself all day and interview people.
you're interviewing folks. So you're doing the book, and then also the you've been working on this climbing magazine.
Yeah, that was really fun. So I grew up reading Climbing Magazine, and that's my dream job. I was like, I don't care if there's any job in the world I could get. I want to be an editor at Climbing, you know? And so...
You told Katie Ives it was to be the editor of Alpinist. Ah!
I may have said that. Alpinist came later. And then Matt was like my second editor. It was Dave Schmidt was my first as I was an intern, and then you came in and replaced Dave, or took over that role with me, and we worked together ever since.
And
12
full
years.
circle,
Yeah.
Tracy Ross, another friend of the show, helped you out when you wrote your book, gave you advice. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, she did. She helped me get my bearings.
So there we go. So 50 years of Climbing Magazine, you've been working
Called
on
Vantage
that.
Point, yeah, in that book. And
And,
then this book for Mountaineers, and then I write for a few other folks.
And you'll be coming out for the Rare Air Talks.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get Chris on stage, don't you think, Kelly? Chris on stage doing some MC duty.
Mm-hmm. I'm an excellent
If
MC
he,
duty
if he
guy.
wears some purple pants, maybe.
Sure, I got some velvet pants I can wear too. Yeah.
Any questions for any of these guys here tonight?
Yeah.
Cool.
But I don't know, Matt. When we met, you had gone through quite a bit of changes in your own life, and I wanted to see, like, looking back, where do do you remember some of that hard stuff you went through, and does that kind of stay with you, or is it kind of behind you? I guess I'm asking. I met you during a very transitional time in your life, when you were getting off benzos, essentially, and now you've been off them ever since. So, but you still struggle with it, right? You had some pretty hard times back then. You want to, I don't know, share a little bit about that
Oh,
period?
well, yeah, I think we met in 2006, and I was in my first year of being off, and I think I was still peeling myself off other meds that I was placed on. Yeah, I mean, I was very symptomatic, and then got better, and then 5 years ago, it all came back, not because I took anything or was abusing substances or anything. It just sometimes sort of like an ankle that's been turned too many times, and you go and walk on it and it just keeps turning. My nervous system sort of blew up on me again. So that was a bad period. The last 5 years have not been a party either, but
You had coffee withdrawals too.
yeah, I think caffeine was part of it. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think when we first met, though, I was dealing with very, very strong symptoms. A lot of people seem to take 3 or 4 years to heal. That's sort of the acute healing phase.
Emma is in the crowd. Hey, Emma, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Emma. I am kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum of Chris. I'm also a journalist, but I'm at the very beginning of my career, so...
I
Things
hope
are
that's
looking
where she
bright.
was going with the ultimate. Like he's the old guy, I'm young. Yes,
but he's-
I love Emma already.
I mean, I don't have my books yet, but they're coming, but they'll,
the books are what's going to be the title of your first book? You think?
Well, I have been playing with an idea about some solo traveling that I've done, and to call it Soul, and then put in parentheses A. So it'd be Sola by
Sola.
myself, but also paying homage to the brightness of the sun and how traveling can teach you
There
a
we
lot
go.
of things.
All right. Well, you're off and going now. We'll look for Sola. We got some budding writers in the audience here. Do you have a question for?
I wanted her to talk about her upcoming story for Alpinist.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
So I'm also writing a piece for Alpinist that'll come out online on the website about an ultra runner, Sunny Strower, who is she's an amazing role model in the ultra running community. Oh, and who got married today. She was engaged last week in Indian Creek, right? She was engaged somewhere in the desert and was actually married today. So we'll send her a little
right.
congratulations.
Well, congrats. So is that your first piece for Alpinist?
It'll be my second piece.
You are on your way then. Well
yeah,
done.
So, yeah.
What question do you have for our
So I would love to
esteemed
hear
panelist?
from all three of you guys. If you could send a text message
Ooh.
to a 15-year-old boy, every 15-year-old boy
This is a
in the
great
country,
question. I like this.
what would be the one text message that you would send?
You could take that a lot of ways. Brendan's like, how? Okay, the wheels are turning in Brendan's head right now. I like where she's going with. I think this is an important question. It's a good one. Who wants
We
to
need
start?
good role models out there. Yeah.
I feel like Rob.
I-
like the you know, like the kind of the coach. You're used to like handling tough questions.
Yeah, but I had a conversation before the podcast, and it was about talking about butts and how that's just like a constant.
The marketing value of butts is
Yeah.
constant through
Marketing
time.
value of butts.
It was about social media and like how it all like funnels to like you're like, oh, this is great, and then it's like, oh, it's just sex again. Okay, it's a new
All
thing.
goes back to
yeah.
butts.
All right.
You know, I might text him and say, just don't get deterred. You know, just stay focused on the butts and let it guide you to your love in life. You know, follow your passion in life. You know, if it's butts, you know, great. But you know, really, ultimately, okay.
Wait, who's obsessed with butts? Did you have butts in your question? Did I miss the first
No.
part of your question? Was somebody obsessed with butts?
No, did I
you
miss
just
it
said
too?
if you could
I just
send a
wanna
text
know-
message to a
yeah.
15-year-old boy.
Yes.
Okay, you're just looking for life advice for 15-year-old adolescent boys.
So
Got it.
so
And you're saying 15-year-old adolescent boys like butts.
and that
go with it.
that conversation just made me think about passion.
Got it.
And you know, at some point, you know, when we enter the workforce and you know, just start living our lives, you know, that passion kind of fades. And you know, it's you know, sometimes the butt is just that reminder
The butt's the reminder.
to keep following that passion in life.
All right, Brendan.
Boy, that. I mean,
What can
that's
you do to erase
gosh.
this bad advice?
I like a text message. I only have like 240 characters or something.
You
But
I
mean,
mean,
I
sign up to follow Rob.
it's such a fascinating time to watch people be held accountable for things that they've done. And I always say stuff to my girlfriend like, I don't think men should be allowed to date until they're 30 because they're just idiots. And like myself included, like I should have like learned to play the guitar or something with all that time. And you like, I don't know how to convey it in a original manner that would actually get through to a 15-year-old because I know how stupid I was at that time, but like just be a nice person, you know, overall. Like this stuff is now coming back to haunt people, which is fantastic to watch, but I'm kind of like, geez, I wonder if I did anything like back then that somebody could bring up and be like, remember the time you did this? And like, oh geez, did I say that? You know, like, but yeah, I don't think I really started focusing on trying to be a good person until I was probably 23, right when I went into like to rehab, where I was like, wow, I really did some bad things and like didn't kill anybody, didn't, you know, physically hurt anybody, but like, wow, I was kind of a dick for like 8 years. And
you know you're very lucky that you didn't hurt anybody with the drunk driving.
Exactly.
Very
Yeah,
lucky.
for sure. And like, I don't think there's a lot of emphasis placed on that. When I was 15, it was like play football, drink beer, chew tobacco, like, you know, be funny in high school or whatever. And there was never like this, just like, it didn't get through to me, or it wasn't phrased in a way that got through to me, but like, I think that's a fairly important thing. You know, you can go far in business if you're just a good person. Like, follow up and be memorable and be nice to people. And I don't know if we emphasize that enough. We like sort of idolize people who are creative, we think geniuses, and they're also dicks. You know, like you go through any of your favorite musicians, you're probably like Kanye West, kind of a dick. Bob Marley, kind of a dick. Fela Kuti, kind of a dick. You know, like, I mean, they're being great music, but you're like, would I have really actually liked that person if I knew
Taylor
everything about
Swift, really sweet person.
Really, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure.
All right, Matt. So we've got stick to the butt. We've got be a good person. Your text advice for a 15-year-old boy.
Is it one boy or all of them?
I think it's all of them.
It's the whole lot of
All
them?
the boys.
I would just say hang on to your childhood as long as possible because adulthood is a horror. You know?
This is our uplifting show.
Well, I mean, it's true, right?
This is our resilience. Yeah.
Well, you be resilient by
Resilient.
staying a child until you're an adult. Because
Well, you know, lucky for us, we do have the mother of a teenage boy in the trailer. What do you tell your teenage boy?
It's funny that you said that because I actually did tell him recently that life is really, really hard and in that he needs to kind of step it up a little bit to practice.
practice for when it gets worse.
The 15-year-old I think 15-year-old boys are about as soft as 15-year-old boys have ever been right now because of social media. That's my theory. I challenge any 15-year-old boy out there listening. I will beat you in any sport. I will kick your ass. You're all soft. Get off your Nintendo. I'm just kidding. Nintendo was like the
send
90s.
him a text message.
Any other questions from the Peanut Gallery? Jeremy Hendricks from La Sportiva's grabbing the mic.
I guess my question is for anybody who wants to answer it is where do you find that sweet spot when you're sort of you're clearly you've found what you think is your passion, but how have you turned that into something that has given you a reward system when it comes to direction or value in your life beyond your passion, particularly for those of you who are mixing clearly your passions with your professions and what you're getting paid for? Like, where do you find that?
And
spot?
all of you do that, right? All of you mix your passion with how you get paid, right? Yeah, Matt, you're the editor of a climbing magazine. Brendan's a filmmaker, author on outdoor adventure-related topics. Semi-rad. Nobody's paying me to eat pizza yet. Working on it, though. And then Rob, you are a guy, an adventure guide, and you also are writing a book. So you're all doing that. Does it take kind of a variation on that? I always wonder when I sit down with folks, does it take a little bit of the fun out of the passion too? So how do you make it work, Jeremy? And then does it take a little bit of the fun out of the passion? We'll start with Brendan.
I mean, I can answer. It definitely does. Like, I think when you're in the dream stage of thinking up something like if it's a book or a film project or whatever, even a magazine article, it's like this great thing. And then somebody says, sounds good. We'll pay you X, and here's your deadline. You're like, shit. And then it becomes work, and you're like, oh, now I got to do this thing, And like 2 hours ago, it was a dream, and it was going to be so much fun. But I don't kid myself. Like, I've done real jobs. Like, I've worked in factories and, shoveled dirt and stuff and washed dishes, been a janitor, and I'm like, well, this is pretty good. If this is all I got to complain about, it's a pretty good day,
So it's all relative then?
Yeah, for sure. Like I always tell my dad, this beats the shit out of work, out of real work.
Matt, do you feel like you're working?
Yeah, I do, but it's work I care about and am passionate about. I mean, I've seen a lot of kind of editors come and go with the climbing titles. It seems like the ones who stay are the ones who will always climb no matter what, and the ones who seem to burn out and kind of get sour on the whole thing are the ones who maybe have their ego tied up in the sport somewhat and get tied up in who they are as the editor and the climber, and it's like, no one fucking cares, just like put a good story together and go climbing on your free time and don't give people a hard time. And I think that's
good life advice.
Yeah, I mean
that's what you should be texting that 15-year-old.
Yeah, I guess so.
Get over yourself.
Yeah.
What about you, Rob? So this is relevant to you because you were in corporate America and made the jump to your passion.
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about giving back. For me, there's nothing like seeing a client's face when they're out on an adventure. There is this leap that you make when your life becomes about other people, really, and when you can combine your passion and your work and your sense of compassion to the world all in one. That's a trifecta, man. And that's maybe the advice I would, if I get a redo on the 15-year-old text, that's what I would do.
I take the butts thing back. Text number 2.
But it is about giving back. I mean, every single trip I do, we do a service project. I mean, I'm taking a group of 35 people to climb Kili next year. We're building a school in Africa, and that's integrated into the trip. The clients are fundraising to support that cause. So when we go to that village and we see those faces on the kids and how much that money is needed for them to survive in life, oh my God! The adventure, making it to the summit of Kili seems like nothing compared to that. And we can do that every day in our everyday life. We don't have to be climbing big mountains to do that.
All right, guys. Well, we thank you guys so much for showing up to the Airstream here at the Studio Boulder. Quick reminder, rareairtalks.com. You can go on there right now. You can get that early bird pricing for our May 17th Rare Air Talk featuring Luis Benitez and Jamie Logan. The theme is going to be diversity and inclusion in the outdoors. And then you can go ahead and you can buy tickets for your June events. You got Rob right here. You got Brendan right here. They're your keynote speakers. The theme of that night is going to be resilience. Come out, enjoy a great evening of programming with an awesome after party at Upslope. Kelly, right?
Yes, with the good kind. So you can
The good kind bit. Is that official? Are we breaking news?
I think it will be, yeah.
It will be. But okay, by the time this podcast, we're going to have the good kind locked in. Our house band will be at Upslope for the after party. We're breaking news here. This is awesome to hear. So we'll look forward to seeing you guys out for that May 17th. It'll be the third Thursday of the month, May through August. Get your tickets, rareairtalks.com. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.